Hey, great news, Scott, for anybody on the East Coast. Matt Calvani is coming through Real Water Sports.
Yeah, look, if you get a chance to go down there to North Carolina and visit with Matt, I got one of the best waves of my life on a board that Matt shaped me at Swami's during a big, massive, probably the largest day I've ever surfed Swami's. Matt made me a beautiful surfboard, and I had a tippy toe drop. I hate to make this about me; it's really about Matt. But go visit, go visit Real Water Sports, and Matt is like next level shaper. He's going to make you an incredible surfboard. Plus, he's just a great guy. I have some of my I guess I'll say deepest conversations with Matt. We have great discussion.
Was that board yellow?
It was. It was, yeah.
There's a photo of it, right?
Yeah, there is a photo of it.
Yeah, that is a big wave for Swami's, and it's shot kind of from up on the parking lot zone.
Yeah, probably the stairs.
Yeah, so it looks, even with it being shot from above and compressing the image, it still looks huge.
Yeah, that actually wasn't one of the bigger waves of the day, but it was such a critical wave. It was when I paddled out and spun and took off and just had this tippy toe. Yeah, it was a good wave.
It's like a shorter six something with a fish, maybe.
I think it was a 6'6", 2+1,
Yeah, yeah.
or it might have been a quad.
Well, let's post that photo. Let's find that photo. So Bing's doing an East Coast tour, but he's going to swing through Real Water Sports on Saturday, June 6th. So this coming Saturday from 4 to 6. Great opportunity to connect with him, communicate with him, ask questions. You could pick up a stock Bing because they do stock Bings at Real Water Sports, or even better, you can get a custom. And so you could save $100 actually. If you do it between the 6th and the 8th, basically for the time that he's there, they're going to give you $100 off. And then additionally, good news for Matt, he's staying at the Waterman's Retreat. So he's in for a treat.
He's stoked. So go down to Real, check out Real Water Sports and hang out with Matt and order a board. I mean, I'm telling you, guaranteed good board.
Yeah, anything from what you're talking about. Obviously, the longboard tradition from Bing is incredible. I agree with you about Matt as a person. One other thing I will say is always so sincere. Like if you are in the middle of the boardroom show and there's tons of people, everybody's trying to get your attention, his attention, he zones that all out, looks you dead in the eyes, and just has like an actual engaged conversation no matter what else is going on. Even if I haven't seen him sometimes for years at a time, and then it's like firm handshake, dead in the eyes, like, dude, what's going on? How are you? You know?
Yeah, he's a deep thinker. He's fun to chat with for sure. And yeah, like more of a long form if you can get some time with him and just discuss topics that maybe aren't even surf related, it gets pretty good.
So does all those character and personality traits that we're talking about equate to better shaping? Does that all go into the board?
Sure. I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think it's imbued through osmosis.
Right.
Well, also on the conversation of surfboards, I know you're hyped on thrusters after watching Stab in the Dark. That leads me to NVS. What's your ideal thruster set from NVS fins?
Well, that's a great question. I haven't had very many thrusters. Like of the fins that they've sent me, they've sent me maybe one thruster set in the past 5 years or whatever. Like I'm always asking for twin fins or quad sets or side bites or like a big single fin.
Yeah.
I haven't had a thruster in a long time. I can't even recall the last thruster set I got.
I have, I think, 5. I have the Mankind's. I have the Arc from Taylor Knox collaboration. They actually sent me the C Drive thrusters, Rusty thrusters, and the C Drives I like best in the twin fin. For me, that's the go-to combination. And I think the very first set they ever sent me was the Mankind's, and I think that might remain my favorite.
Yeah. Well, I have it from good authority that there's a friend of ours who has a boat that wants to take you out surfing with your rusty set of fins and some new rusty surfboards.
Is that in San Diego or is that in Santa Barbara?
San Diego.
I'm coming.
Yeah.
Let's go. Are you coming?
He mentioned that he's going to fire up his boat and take us surfing. So
okay, so it's all of us. It wasn't like he was leapfrogging you and giving me the invite.
No, he mentioned you. He's like,
okay.
David's going.
Cool. I got the fins right here. The other thing I'm a big fan of is the board with the Shaper's fins. Like if you're riding a Rusty, throw the Rusty set in there. That's what they're designed for.
Yeah, totally agree.
And the good news is NVS stocks all of, I mean, they've got collabs with everybody from Skip Fry all the way down through. So go check it out, surfnvs.com, or follow on Instagram just to see all their cool stuff, which is Naked Viking Surf.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, guy, David, welcome. It is Spit. It's the Spit Podcast. It's David Lee Scales and Scott Bass, and we're talking surfing. Lots of stuff that has to do with riding waves and some of the cultural ephemera that circulates around that. Good morning, David. It's June 3rd.
Good morning, Scott. Do you want to know what number episode this is? Or do you?
Sure. I don't have a clue.
460.
Wow. Look at us.
I ran a quick calculation. Let's say we average about 90 minutes per episode. You want to guess how many minutes we've recorded together in 490 episodes?
I mean, I can't do the math. I'm going to say 70,000.
41,000 minutes of talking.
Wow. Look at us.
That is a
Chatting it
lot.
up.
That is a lot. That's about 700 hours.
Did you say 41,000?
41,000 minutes, about 700 hours.
I would suggest to you that 40,000 of those minutes is you and I telling the WSL to put the surfers in good waves all the time.
Well, they may be getting good waves these next couple of days.
Oh my God, they absolutely are. I mean, I guess we'll just start there since you opened it up. But the forecast, in fact, I was looking at the Punta Roca cam on Surfline just now this morning. It's pumping. It's absolutely pumping, and it's going to be pumping. And when they start on Friday, 2 days from today, it's going to be 8 to 10 feet and pumping. And then they go into a little bit of a wind situation where it's going to be tormented. It's going to be chaotic on the ocean surface. I think they'll have lay days through the weekend, probably even into Monday. And then Tuesday through the rest of next week, it's going to be really good. So they've got a wonderful forecast lined up for them. And don't forget to either pick your survival league pick, which I've been out of since week 1, or your fantasy surfer team, because it's all coming up here rather quickly.
Yeah, great call. Are you excited for this event?
I kind of am,
Me
to be
too.
honest with you. And I think part of it is because of the stab in the dark, watching Ethan surf and getting him in good waves. And all of the guys, I feel like the level of competition, the level of surfing is kind of next level. When you think of like Liam O'Brien and Morgan Siblick, like these guys have leveled up. Like these guys are making semis and finals. Like there's not just a top, there certainly is like a top 4 or 3 you could suggest to yourself, but they're meeting their match when Morgan Siblick runs up against you in a heat. It's no longer like, oh, okay, yeah, I got the guy that's at the bottom half of the draw in my heat. I think I've got this a slam dunk. These guys are, like I said, they're stepping up, and it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I think you feel the exact same way that I was trying to put into words, I think, as I was thinking about the event. The separation between the greatest surfers on tour and everybody else is much more compressed at this venue. When you go to a place like J-Bay or Cloudbreak for sure, Pipeline, that separation becomes really distinct. John is dominating Pipeline, and then a Caleb Robson, you're like, okay, I know he charges, but, he doesn't have the experience out there, basically. A cobblestone point break is within driving distance of so many of these people on tour, so they grew up really honing their skills in this style of wave, And if it's not within driving distance, they definitely prioritized going to surf trips at right-hand point breaks, you know? So goofy footer or regular footer, I think everybody has honed their bottom turn, their top turns in a way very, very similar to this. So again, that separation becomes much more compressed. Now, to your point, Ethan Ewing seems like a lock. Like coming off a Stab in the Dark, you look at him and you go, wow, his surfing looks incredible. Okay, who did he draw? He drew Caleb Robson. And I go, well, wait a second. That seems like the easiest draw. However, Caleb could post 2 9s out there, no problem, you know? And so it really does become a much more complicated or just a much more competitive event.
Yeah, it does. And like you said, you know, everyone's kind of, Caleb Robson could absolutely create what I guess would be suggested as an upset. And the bracket situation is really interesting. And you look at it and it's just it used to, like you say, all these guys, I mean, this type of wave, an 8-foot cobblestone point, is just in everybody's wheelhouse. The only thing I would suggest to you is some stuff that's maybe outside of their control, which is if I was a team manager or I was like the guy that was kind of watching my competitor, I would make sure that don't over surf. Like don't surf too much because it's hot. You're going to need electrolytes. You're going to need water. Quite frankly, as much as we both love El Salvador, there could be an opportunity for a weird bug to get into your system and maybe weaken you a little bit. And so I would really watch my food intake and I would make sure that my electrolytes are on point. And don't over surf before the event. Like save yourself for your heats because you want to be super fresh based on those things I just mentioned.
Well, specific to El Salvador, what I hear from people who have spent a lot of time down there is what gets you sick is ingesting the ocean water more than the food, you know? Yeah. So you have to really basically be careful not to swallow any water while you're in the water. I mean look at the color of it too.
Unless something's changed, there's a massive sewage system at the top of the point, which pumps sewage into the lineup at Punta Roca. Now, maybe they fixed that. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Maybe I'm misspeaking. Maybe I'm throwing the El Salvador Chamber of Commerce under the bus here. But
I don't know.
I've been out there. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know the specifics of that, but they definitely have runoff issues. So just with rains and stuff like that. So basically the food from my experience has been totally clean and fine, and the drinking water, all that stuff is sussed out. It's basically don't take a gulp accidentally while you're in the water, or even, I mean, forget about a gulp, even just letting it seep in. You want to be really.
Some of the water is going to get into your system. I'll tell you a story. I may have told you this before. I went there in 99, 2000, something like that. And I wore a white t-shirt to paddle out. I paddled out. It was obviously disgustingly brown and frothy brown foam. And when I came in, this t-shirt was dark brown.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I couldn't wash it out. Like it was gnarly, man.
Yeah, that would be, I would argue, based on that concern of yours for these surfers, that LAKEY Peterson may end up on the top of the heat because of her drinkag1.com/surf. She's on the AG1 Pro. Look at you. See? You'd be fine too if you went down there. That'll keep you, that boosts your immune system.
I'll tell you, I was watching the pre-surf on Surfline, and I'm like, you know what? I need some AG1. I was just drawn toward it because I knew, you know.
Yeah, drinkag1.com/surf. So based on everything that we said, everybody that surfs great in this style of wave. I think the point of differentiation will become variety. You have a long wave, you're doing 8 turns. And I think when I look back at Yago, I think maybe WSL posted some clips of Yago last year and he got a 10. And when I looked at his couple of rides that they posted, it was tremendous variety. Like he was laying it on rail, he was blowing it through the lip, then he did like a crazy inverted full rotation air, landed it, finished the wave. Griffin Colapinto has that same ability to kind of throw 10 different turns, depending on what the section's offering. So I really do think that is where you will start to see the separation between somebody getting a 7-point ride for doing 8 really cool turns versus somebody posting a 9.
Yeah, that's a really good call. And I start to think of the women, and I start to think of some of the backside surfers that seem to kind of just do the same turn over and over. By the way, it's an incredible turn. It's an incredible down to the bottom, straight up backside, like a Carolyn Marks type turn. Can they mix it up the way that you mentioned with Griffin, who's got, 4 or 5 different turns in his bag and knows in his head, like, I just did that turn. Let's now drift the fins or whatever the case may be. So that's a great point. That's where the point of differentiation is, mixing up your turns on this long wave. The other thing that comes into mind here is as we get through the bracket, closer into the quarters, semis, and finals, those guys that do that thing that Idolo did at Raglan, which is do crazy stuff at the beginning where there's just a lot more on the line, early in the ride. I think that the judges love that. I think you and I as fans love that. And I think, like I said, we'll see more of that. Probably, as I was watching the free surfing here this morning, guys right off the bat, first turn, were doing air reverses and stuff. It was pretty incredible. So I think they can toy with the wave, as you mentioned earlier in this show. They're all used to this type of wave, so they're ready to go.
If you want to watch free surfs, Stab Magazine compiled a lot of the free surf clips into about a 50-minute kind of raw footage edit, and you can see everybody out there doing their thing. The funny thing is, when I looked at the bracket on the men's side, I automatically gravitate towards regular footers. The names we already mentioned, Ethan, Griffin. But then I'm like, Yago's performances in the past, you'd expect Cole Houshman to absolutely smash it. I look at Connor O'Leary at Snapper this year, at J-Bay last year, and I'm like, Connor O'Leary could win this event. Like, there isn't a separation even between regular foot. There's no advantage I don't see between regular footer and goofy footer out here. I think both are equally adept.
Well, I think that the goofy footer has the advantage when we're talking about straight up vertical surfing. Where I think the regular foots can kind of outshine is what they do in the air on this wave. If you've just got a regular footer and a goofy footer going bang, 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 going up and down, doing turns, not getting in the air, I feel like the goofy foot backside surfer has the advantage. He's going to get to 12 o'clock quicker and probably more frequently. Whereas if now we're introducing airs, I feel like doing big backside airs, and again, I'm no aerialist, but I feel like that's probably a little more difficult than the guys that can do it on the front side.
Aside from vertical, who do you think has more opportunity for variety?
Do you mean without the air game or on the wave face?
Either way, goofy versus regular.
I think it's a toss-up. Goofy first. I think they both can mix it up regarding the style of turns that they do on the wave face. Yeah.
I want to isolate and analyze a couple of specific heats. Jack Robinson, I would have expected to be in the top 10. I mean, maybe the top 5, but certainly top 10. He's sitting in 15th right now, which is a shocker, and he has Cole Houshman. I think Jack, especially at this point in the season, you need to make a move. Like, if you haven't done it by now, you need to lock it up, especially considering that we have a cut line for the last couple of events. How do you see that going, Jack versus Cole?
That's a great, there must be some pressure on Jack Robinson. And the thing we know about Jack is that he can meet the mental strain of the pressure of, hey, I need a result.
He performs his best often in that scenario.
So that's just a really interesting one to watch, which is what we love as fans. Like, everyone knows that Jack needs a result. And who else knows it? Cole. I think Houshman's going to be, that's a really tough one to call.
I think it's a really tough heat, but who has even more pressure than Jack is Cole himself. Cole has 3 17th place finishes, and his last event, finally, he got a 5th, but he's sitting in 21st position, and I think he would have expected to be in the top 10 as well. So I think that's a real pressure cooker heat. And if you look traditionally at who handles the pressure best, you're right, Jack Robinson would be the bet on that one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And luckily for Cole, it's going to be huge. It's going to be solid. So because he's a big boy, Cole Houshman. Isn't he like 195 or something like that? Like he's a pretty big, solid kid.
No, I think he's more. I think he's 6'3", and he's like over the 200 mark.
So he could be throwing some water and vertical. That's going to be a great heat to watch. I mean, they're all going to be fun to watch. How about Felipe Toledo, who frankly is got to be a favorite?
Well, if I was still in Survival League, he would be my lock pick. You know, there's like ones that you just kind of guarantee you're going to make it through to the quarterfinals. Yeah. He's often making the finals out there. He would be my lock pick.
So as you know, because you've looked at the bracket, he's going to be facing perhaps one of the most exciting guys on tour, which is Kaulu Vost. How do you say his first name?
Kaiuli
Vost, our Olympic gold medalist, who's proven he can surf in anything. Like we've seen him in kind of crap and absolutely shredding.
I didn't expect that from him this year, but he has actually performed really well. I think at Snapper specifically. He got a 5th, I believe, at Snapper.
Yeah,
but
he was ripping.
He's got a bunch of 17ths. He's actually in 22nd right now. So he needs to post a result as well.
That's going to be a great heat because he's going to be on his backside. It's going to be pumping. He can match any of the pressure that a legendary world champion like Felipe Toledo can put on him. I don't think that doesn't affect the Frenchman at all or the Tahitian.
To be honest, I'm going to take the opposite stance. I think that might be the easiest heat draw for. I think Felipe is a lock in that heat, and Kaiuli's going to have to really. I mean, he's going to have to put 2 9s on the board, basically.
Okay, well, how about this? If Felipe wins, I'll do the whole next episode without a hat on. People can watch my. And if Kauli Vost wins, what do you have to do?
Whatever. I mean, those stakes are so giant. I don't know that I can compete with you without a hat. That's a real one.
I just figured usually when we put $100 bills on the line, we forget about it. And how about $100? $100.
You're going to take Kauli Vost?
No. If Kauli Vost wins, I win 100. If Felipe wins, you get $10. 10 to 1.
Let's go 50. 50 to 10.
Okay, so Felipe will win. You will win $50, or I will win $100.
No. If Felipe wins, I win 10. If Kaiuli wins, you win 50.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's a fair odds. 5 to 1. Yeah.
5 to 1.
All right, done.
Book it. Book the bet. Let's make sure the listeners follow up. Make sure that the Venmo actually occurs.
Listeners, we need accountability because we forget. We talk so much on here that we just forget so much of what we say. But I'll take that bet, Felipe. Easy money. So I want to keep an eye on Miguel Pupo. I'm shocked that no offense, Miggy. I'm shocked that Miguel Pupo is in the position he's in right now, in second place on tour. But he's proving me wrong event over event. So, I'm curious to see what he does here, but I don't expect him to maintain the position that he's in.
I mean, following that line of logic, you're absolutely right. Like when you look at the bracket and you look at each heat, you're like, yeah, I could see Mateus Hurdy being in the final. And that's not even somebody that's on my radar. You could see Iago, you could see Marco Mignot, you could see Ethan or Caleb or Liam O'Brien or Cole, Morgan or Idla. Like everybody's really leveled up. There's a couple of heats where you're like, okay, that's probably not going to go his way, but for the most part, it's tough.
The heats that you could have a lot safer bet on are the ones who are in round 1. Luke Thompson, Oscar Berry, like those guys we haven't really seen performances from. Seth's having a really tough year. Eli's having a tough year. The one person in the round 1, though, that I said I gave you my lock pick, which was Felipe Toledo. Yeah. My dark horse pick for this event is Matthew McGillivray.
Yeah, I like that one too. I was looking at that. And then I was looking at Brian Perez. Quite frankly, Brian Perez could totally shock Eli Hanneman. Yeah,
so Matthew McGillivray, if you don't remember, has won this event.
Wow.
Which is kind of surprising. Yeah. And he's not even on tour this year. He's the replacement for Jordy. Jordy pulled out due to a couple of niggling injuries that he's had for I guess a couple of years now, that got activated in New Zealand. So Jordy's out. And the sad thing for Jordy is he's in 26th right now, which is a horrible position. Never expect him to be there. And these conditions suit him. He's won this event in the past. The waves are going to be big, which suits him so well because the couple of events this year on tour where there wasn't forecast, of course, he floundered. So Jordy, this was his opportunity to come back, but he's just not in shape for
I feel
it.
like I just saw Jordy in the Mentawais on like some Red Bull trip or something.
You're right.
Maybe that was past and they just did the edit and they just put it together and sent it out there. I don't know, but
No, you're right. He was there about a month ago.
bank vaults just pulling into big barrels.
He was, yeah. And he just posted a clip on his YouTube channel at Reunion Island in that offshore right where they do these massive airs on, and he was absolutely shredding. So I don't know when they took that trip, but again, these injuries have plagued him for a period of time now, and he's just reactivated them.
Well, Matthew McGilvory, let's keep an eye on him. And yeah, the rest of the surfers in round one, unfortunately, just kind of, it's quite a burden to be in round one, to be at that, in that lower tier there. There's a lot to get through, you know, like you get through your round one heat and you're like, okay, let me just take a breather here and settle in. I can't believe I got through this heat. And then you're matched up against Gabe or somebody like that. It's just brutal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there is no rest for the wicked for sure. And it's a tough draw in Heat 2 no matter who you get. So exciting event. Like I asked you right at the beginning, I'm actually excited for this one. It's a lot of action.
The waves are the stars, David, as you mentioned, and as everyone knows, and the waves are going to be there. It's going to be pumping.
Well, the other thing is no lulls, right? Like it's action every single heat. So yeah, lots to look forward to. Like you said, Friday start, and they got weather. They'll have swell throughout the waiting period. It's just that they have weather to contend with. So maybe there'll be some half days run before the afternoon wind or something like that.
Yeah, for sure that, but for sure this weekend, Saturday, Sunday looks kind of hideous for wind.
Okay. Well, we can kind of segue from that into just the fact that the entire west coast of the Americas in the Pacific have been absolutely lighting up. I mean, all the way to Tahiti, down through Central America, Mexico, all the way through California up to San Francisco has been just absolutely pumping this week.
Yeah, I mean, super El Nino, right? It's happening. There's South Swell. You know what? Oh, by the way, there's a friggin' tropical depression in the Eastern Pacific right now. Like that's pretty early to have, early June, and we've already got a tropical storm developing. That speaks to that warm water that's down there off Ecuador. And yeah, so South Swell's been pumping. You're right. Saw some great footage of Greg Long at Puerto Escondido taking a hammer to the head on a beast.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, Greg has so much humility. He posted a picture of him, and it basically said, I haven't been here in 2 years. Excited to be in the first real swell to see, or first big surf, not the first real one, but and he takes a hammer to the head, and he's like, man, humbling learning experience. I promised myself I would only take really clean waves, and I got snookered into a good one, and he got hammered. And Greg Long's got to be 50 years old, or how old is Greg Long? I mean, if I'm 61, okay, let's say he's 45. That's still you're getting to the point where you're like, you know what? I did this when I was younger. There's a point. Everyone's different. There's a point where you're like, I'm not doing Puerto Escondido anymore. Like that was fun when I was a kid, but I'm now 45 years old. 43. How old is Greg Long? We got to figure it out. But he's charging. The point is that Greg's charging, and there's a 43. Lot of energy out. 43. Okay, so
he's 43. So I agree with you with everything other than his age. Like Puerto Escondido is a young man's wave.
Yeah. Oh,
like there's no question about it. The amount of paddling, the amount of abuse that you're going to take. Like the thing is, as you get older in surfing, you can mitigate against trauma. You can mitigate against wipeouts by being very selective on the waves. You can mitigate against, duck diving, paddling out through the channel. Puerto doesn't allow any of that stuff. There is no channel, and there's waves that look perfect that turn into closeouts. So you're going to get smoked, and that's a young body game.
Well, I mean, a couple of things. You're absolutely right. It's a young body. But you can. So my experience of Puerto has always been, when it's big, was always no leash, have a fin in your wetsuit. I mean, in your in your board shorts. And when you wipe out, you just come in, grab your board, and you walk down to the jetty. And you can time it pretty. You know, if you paddle out when there's a set, you're going to get slammed. But you can kind of time it down there by the jetty and get out rather safely, relative to paddling out at the main zone, which you're just not going to do. Like if you wipe out, you're just coming in, you're catching a breath, you're walking down the beach, you might be lucky enough to get some water in you. And then, you're 20 minutes later, you'll be in the lineup.
To clarify for listeners, Scott's talking about a swim fin in his shorts, not a NVS fin.
Right. Swim fin in the back of the shorts.
Swim fin, not blade. This was actually going to be my must-see moment, but I'll just play it for you now. Puerto Escondido, Tom Lowe. I don't know if you saw this clip or not, but geez Louise, this thing is an absolute, I mean, this looks like a closeout basically. But Tom Lowe on a massive left, just on a huge board too. Second section, third section, clamping, and somehow makes it through.
That was huge. You know what? You go in on that one and just say, okay, I'm good. I did it.
I think you go in for life on that one. That was a wave of a lifetime.
Yeah, you're not going to get two like that in the same session out there. I mean, you could. It'd be very rare. You'll probably pack some other closeouts because you're so rushed out. But
the speed and the way that it's kind of clamping and him holding the line. By the way, must-see moment presented by Treeswax, treeswax.com, promo code SPIT, save 20%. We're reminded around this time every year about how timeless Puerto Escondido is. Like this this type of wave people were surfing in the 90s on a relatively similar board, maybe a thinner version of the board, through the 2000s, through to today. This would have made the video section of Puerto Underground back in the 90s, and the waves of Todd Morcom from the 90s would have made the section in the video today, or they'd go viral today. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it is, relevant. It's equally impressive, even still today. So what's interesting though is, specific to Tom Lowe, is he's had multiple life-threatening wipeouts. Like he's broken bones in his wipeouts. Like he has paid the consequence of charging, and yet he's still showing up at these swell events and doing this. The other thing is the big board. I mean, how big do you think that board is?
I bet it's 9.6.
So he's traditionally ridden Christensen. So I'm going to guess this is a Christensen. I don't know for sure. Yeah. Those big boards don't allow for you making minute adjustments like you could in a 6-foot barrel. So the amount of lead time that you commit to when you're paddling into the wave, you're picking your line. Then you're holding that line. And the wave is kind of gurgling all around. You're just holding that line. And the fact that he holds that line with such confidence is just ballsy. You know what I mean? Like it's such a freaking ballsy move.
Yeah, it's amazing. What an amazing ride that he got through that section right there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
As he takes that pump off the bottom, you see him adjust his stance. Like his front foot goes forward for like a more stability, basically. Like watch, right here, pump, little adjustment right there.
Yeah.
And just locks it in and is able to navigate that crazy section.
Watch what he does right here. He pointed out to paddle out, and then he's like, okay, I'm pointing back in to go.
Well, I think he saw that
coming. I'm out here.
He saw the wave behind him.
That's an amazing ride, Tom Lowe. Messy moment presented by Treeswax.
Yeah, and I'll also reference as kind of a supplemental must-see moment. It was my must-see moment 11 months ago. Keith Malloy made a short documentary for Yeti on Tom Lowe. It's called Let Me Live, and it covers his origin story and some of those life-threatening wipeouts that I already discussed. He goes into detail about that, and he's like a countryman, or what do they call it? Yeah, not a countryman, a hard worker,
blue collar worker, a laborer, a man amongst men.
I mean, those are all accurate, but that's not the word that I'm thinking of.
Right.
It'll come to me later. But he's just, yeah, he's not like cut from a pro surfer cloth with a ton of support. He's been earning it on his own.
Right.
Journeyman.
Right.
Journeyman. Right. And then the other supplemental must-see moment is called Place of Thorns, which is that deep dive from Now Media about Puerto Escondido as a surf spot. It's like a 30-minute incredible documentary.
You know, speaking of that, which I watched, and it is incredible, there was a recent post on YouTube or on Instagram from one of the local guys, and he was mentioning the torrential floods or rains that they had no, it was a hurricane. A hurricane moved through there and moved all the sand out of the harbor down into the beach. And he was saying that Zicatella had really good bars, some of the best bars he's seen in a long, long time. But relative to this hurricane spitting all the sand out and pushing it down the beach. So that was an interesting thing. And I saw this just, a week ago or something. So
I
think it was from last season.
Maybe that's why we're seeing these clips coming out now, because in that documentary, they explained that for years it had turned into a closeout, basically.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
good.
That's
they
why I
needed
brought it
that.
up.
Yeah, they needed that.
Hey, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back. We'll talk some more surf, stab in the dark, and some big news coming at you, too.
Okay.
What sort of filth are you putting in your brain? What are you watching there?
The LA mayoral race update.
Well, welcome back. We just saw some super El Niño happening there down in Puerto Escondido. Tom Lowe on a super El Niño big wave gun. Well, I've got some big news, David. The Boardroom Best in Show, we have a category. The Boardroom Best in Show board build-off is presented by Real Water Sports. $5,000 in cash to the winning shaper. And it's free to enter. Anyone, any shaper around the world can enter for free. And this year's category in the Boardroom Best in Show board build-off presented by Real Water Sports is the Super El Niño Big Wave Gun.
Ooh.
Now, let me throw a caveat out there. I know it's a little early to be calling this El Niño a Super El Niño because I'm a Mark Sponsler watcher. I watch the StormSurf.com stuff, and while it appears we're on the way to a Super El Niño, we won't really know the exact status of the El Niño, its strength, until probably mid-June, late June.
We're 100% on our way to a Super El Niño is what he said.
Right, 100% probability of a Super El Niño. So we've got the Super El Niño Big Wave Gun as the category. And go to boardroomshow.com, Best in Show, and click for details. But it's actually really simple. All you have to do is send us an email that says you're in, and you're in. And David, as you know, that we have really a great exhibit each and every year for Best in Show, the board build-off. And this year, first time ever, we're giving $5,000 in cash to one person, the winning shaper, winner takes all. And the judging, of course, is done by a public vote. It's a weighted, we have an expert as well. So it's 2/3 public, 1/3 expert. But you can go there and place your vote on which gun you think is the best board. And we strongly suggest, David, that each entrant include an information card or a page which sort of highlights the build and the thinking behind the design. And I'm going to give you the judging criteria for the Super El Niño Big Wave Gun. It's going to be judged on this criteria: functionality, creativity, and construction. So first and foremost, as is the case in every Best in Show board build-off presented by Real Water Sports, the design must be functional. But in bold, we have this line for you. Please incorporate design concepts that will push big wave surfing forward during this Super El Niño winter. And then, of course, the quality of the craftsmanship from nose to tail, including but not limited to the shape, the lamination, the artwork, the sand job, and the finish. Every aspect of the build must be top quality and will be scrutinized. Real Water Sports, their commitment, David, to the board building community runs deep. Tripp and his partner and the crew there at Real Water Sports, they're core surfboard lovers, and we're super excited to have them come aboard as the presenting sponsor of the Boardroom Best in Show board build-off. Super El Niño Big Wave Gun is the category. So all you shapers, get involved. Begin the process by sending us an email and entering.
This might be the most challenging one yet. I think that there's not a lot of shapers who actually have a lot of experience building guns.
We shall see, right?
So I think this might be a new genre board for some of the shapers that would normally compete in this. The interesting element there is innovation in big wave riding, because I think there's more room for innovation in that space than almost any other genre of surfboard, because those boards are big so that they can paddle, but that eliminates the maneuverability. And what we see in the big wave realm of paddle surfing is people going straight. And we've gotten to the point now where they can kind of knife in and they can pull into the tube, but that's the extent of big wave surfing. And so if you were able to implement some sort of innovation that allows turning and adjusting the line, that would be huge.
Yeah, it's an interesting space because, as you know, this is also life and death situation. So the level of experimentation is sometimes limited by the fact that, hey, we don't want to put our riders at risk by crafting something so crazy that it's just didn't work. It's silly. And, the rocket blew up at liftoff instead of, getting into outer space. So you're right. There is a ton of space. Of course, we all know that Chris Christensen built a really interesting board for Ian Walsh a number of years ago. Some of those aspects, I think, are starting to find their way into surfboards, KT boards that he's making, that KT is making on Maui for our friend. What's our friend's name over there on Maui?
I'm just going to let you struggle with it.
Kai. No.
Yes, it is. Kai Lenny.
Yeah, Kai. So those boards, I mean, that kind of like speaks to what we're talking about, right? So we're asking shapers to just, I know that there are surfboard builders that have something that they've been toying with, that they've been thinking about, that they want to, and it's, it might be subtle too, like how much roll you put in the nose to get down the wave face, or maybe there's a slight V in the nose. Like, I think getting down the wave face is crucial because, as you mentioned, they're trying to shorten up the board so that there's maneuverability. And what that means is that, well, I can't sacrifice paddling ability. We got to catch the wave first. So there's a lot there that can be explored. And of course, fin configuration has a lot to do with that too. When you speak about knifing down the wave face. And so it's going to be fun. We're, push big wave surfing forward during this Super El Niño winter with the Best in Show board build-off presented by Real Water Sports.
So Strauch is a big ad. He makes some amazing guns that a lot of people depend on. He's an advocate for the forefin, for the quad on those boards. But then there's like old school traditionalists riding Waimea with single fins who are like, ardent single fin enthusiasts. The other thing that I think I remember Strauch telling me about was having a weight system that slides on the deck of the board. So we see people adding weight to the toe boards, of course. So toe boards, the reason why you see such amazing surfing from Kai Lenny and other people on the toe boards is, of course, they're 6 feet. They're small, so they can do not only turns, but I mean, he's doing flips now. He's doing airs and stuff. But those are able to maintain those high speeds because they're so heavy. So they're almost like a similar mass as the big paddle gun. It's just in a 6 foot thing. And so they do manufacture higher density foam that's 200% the weight of like a traditional shortboard. But then in addition to that, they'll carve out segments of the foam and put metal beads in there to weigh the board down just to make it heavier. The goal is weight in that realm. And so Stretch was telling me something about long paddle boards or, big wave guns that have a weight system that you can actually slide forward and slide back. So I don't know if you're able to do it like while you're paddling, you want the weight forward until then you're getting up and you slide it back with your hand or something like that. I'm not exactly sure the functionality in it, but it is technical.
Think about it like this. You might want the weight in the tail. As you're paddling into the wave picks you up. As you go vertical, the weights swing down to the nose as you're making the drop. The weight in the tail helps you lift the tail up and get into the wave, and then the weight drops down into the nose at that point. Maybe. I don't know. These are yeah.
Maybe really, that's what it is.
Stretch is always on the cutting edge for sure.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And then I remember Christian Beamish telling me, singing the praises of a keel fin twin in big boards.
Yeah, look, that's why we've left it kind of open here. We're not telling you what kind of, we're not even, I mean, you could make a board for, Todos or Blacks or Swamis or La Jolla Cove or Hazards or whatever big wave spot. We're not necessarily saying it has to be Jaws. We're just saying make us your board for the super big El Niño big wave season. So there's a lot to be, there's a lot to chew on. There's a lot of opportunities there. We're going to see some beautiful boards at the Best in Show Board Build-Off presented by Real Water Sports. And with $5,000 going to the winner, this is for sure the largest prize we've ever offered. So we're pretty excited. We're hoping that helps to ignite and stoke the board builders. And yeah, there might, it'll be fun.
Well, yeah, major shout out to Real Water Sports for contributing that sum, because I think that does make it really exciting. It increases the stakes a bit. It also reminds me of the year Nathaniel Curran won the U.S. Open, and he won like $30,000, which is a lot of money. And then the very next year, Hurley upped the price to $100,000, and Brett Simpson won. And Nathan Curran is like, I did the same exact work last year, and I got $70,000 less. All previous Best in Show winners are going to be like, can we get some retroactive pay for this one?
Well, and to be clear, Real's the presenting sponsor. The Boardroom is the one giving the $5,000.
Oh, well, thank you, Boardroom Show, then. Also, we talk about stab in the dark, and we like come up with these controversies of like, it was somebody's finger on the scale. Now that $5,000 is involved, you better make sure there's no fingers on the scale. The community votes, you got to somehow figure out to measure that it's just one vote per person.
Somebody's done that. We've already done that.
Okay, good.
It's not going to be the most famous wins or most. Yeah, we've got that figured out.
Somebody sets up a bot farm in India to just send in votes nonstop all day long.
Yeah, we have that all figured out. I've got data scientists that have already developed the process.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. It's a lot of money on the line.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Well, you teased Stab in the Dark. What can we say about the finale?
Well, I'll give you my thoughts, then you can chime in if you want to go that route. Does that make sense to you? First of all, phenomenal overall season or series or whatever you call it. What did you call it? A season or a series or
series?
Series. Why, David? Guess what? The waves were the stars. But on top of that, Ethan Ewing was the star in really good waves. So you just can't get enough of Ethan Ewing surfing. It was really just, I think Taj said it best. It's just like kind of like the best in the world as far as rail surfing. I don't think it's matched by anybody. It's pretty incredible. We've often said, you and I, especially you, that Ethan and guys like Gabe do their best surfing with their jerseys on. And I would suggest to you that there still is a little bit more spark when we watch Ethan and even Gabe free surfing. But the fact of the matter is they can match their competitive surfing with their free surfing. I think, in my opinion, the best surfing of the entire series was done on the Channel Islands surfboard.
In episode 1?
in episode 1 and in the final episode. The final episode, the very first session, it looked like the CI was just an extension of his body. He pushed that board to the limit. It was as if he was on a racehorse, a thoroughbred that was asking for more, wanted to keep on running, even though he'd crossed the finish line. That board just kept on going. And in the final episode, that morning when Ethan was on this Channel Island and then the JS, it was phenomenal. And frankly, I thought that after that session, that those two boards from that particular session, that those two boards just couldn't be beat. The waves were glassy. It was pumping. The tide was filling in. And Ethan was fresh, you know? And
well, let me ask you this then. Do you think it was a failure of construction for CI? Because I agree with you, that board looked the best. It's really tough to parse between the final day and the wave conditions did change. But I agree with you, it's right there in the conversation, the CI. However, he pointed out on the tail that it was crushing. It was collapsing a little bit, both on the heel side and the toe side. And he's like, yeah, there's no carbon fiber here. Like, there's no reinforcement here. So we're starting to see a little failure here. And I don't know that I saw it in the performance, but I could see that getting into his head of like, I'm pushing this board's construction to its limits, whereas the other ones I know are still on the ascent.
Well, that might be what he thinks. But my sense is that means the board's getting to where it needs to be. Like, you're breaking it in. You're getting it to that perfect place. You know, right before delamination is when the board's at its best as regarding flex. And now you've really got your footprint into it. You've even got more hold, and it's actually more a part of your body now. It truly is just a part of your foot. So I poo-poo that. I think you want a little bit of denting in your foam back there where your foot is. It actually helps you.
In the previous iteration of this with Kelly Slater, Britt Merrick says that the best surfer connection with board that he's ever witnessed. So to be clear, he was saying a moment where the surfer and the board were just so connected that they were kind of performing in unison. He said the best surfer board connection he ever witnessed was the finals day where Ethan Ewing finished second or third at lowers. And he's like, DHD, Ethan, that combo that day was the best connection I've ever seen. And what I will say to Britt is that this topped that. If he thinks that was the best, which it was at the time, I'm saying congratulations, because your board connection with Ethan in this event surpassed what we witnessed at lowers that day.
I think that's fair. That's a fair overview and an assessment. And frankly, I just think that there was no better surfing done during this series than on that Channel Island surfboard and the JS. That moment, the final episode, the first session, there was no better surfing done. And a lot of it had to do with, look, the waves were glassy. Like there seems to be a rush to finish the series, I've noticed. Like they spend all this time getting 12 boards together, and then it's like, okay, it's finals day, no matter what, we're finishing today. We're finishing today, no matter what. And I understand, look, there's operational logistic time constraints and all that, but in a perfect situation, the surfer and the final two boards would get a breather. Maybe there'd be, fresh 3-hour session with good waves, glassy conditions, and a fresh surfer who hasn't spent the past 5 days grinding, surfing, hour after hour on 12 different boards. And frankly, in my opinion, even though he's Ethan Ewing, he's probably a bit frazzled. Give him a couple days off, maybe take him to a new spot. I don't know how you do it, but I do sense that there's this, like, the final surf is almost an afterthought. Like, okay, look, we got to just get through this. We got the final two boards finally. Okay, here we go. We're going out. Like, you hear him say that. There is this sense that they're kind of trying to hurry up and get it over with, which seems to be, maybe not the best way to do it. I know, look, all the boards at various moments in this thing looked really good. And eventually it's Ethan's call, regardless of if they take a breather. But, and I respect that, in his judgment, he chose the Hayden shapes. But that's not the board that I thought looked the best. But it's not my call, it's Ethan's.
So I I hear what you're saying in general. I don't think that criticism applies to this particular series because I think Ethan, if there was a situation where on the finals day Ethan was still uncertain and he needed an extra day, then sure, that's a valid criticism. I think Ethan had clarity for what he thought was the best board. Go ahead.
Do you recall that he just immediately was like, these two boards are out, this board's in? Like there was a sense that he was rushing.
I don't think he was rushing. I think he surfed that second session and felt conviction.
Possibly, quite possibly.
He seemed convicted.
But there wasn't any discussion about why, other than, I don't know, like there wasn't any like, I was right. The indentation from my foot into the back of the tail was causing it to chatter out at the top of the turn. I was blown away when he came in and threw those boards out. I was like, there's no way those boards aren't going to the final. That was just, how could they not?
Yeah, no, I think he did amazing surfing and I felt similarly, but he seemed convicted. So my question then to you is, if you feel that convicted about the CI, why do you think he chose the Hayden and the Dan Mann as 1 and 2?
Well, again, all the boards look great at various moments. I mean, you could make an argument that you could have picked any of those 12 boards and just had the final day, just like randomly pick 2 boards, and he would have absolutely shredded the shit out of it, which he did on each and every board, which they mentioned, which Taj mentioned.
Yeah.
So on some level, we've kind of gotten to that place where it's like, all of these guys are incredible shapers. There's no bad surfboard here. And it's just a kind of, you got to, like, that's a question that you asked me that you need to ask Ethan. I can't answer that, why he chose the Hayden shape. The Hayden shapes look great. He was ripping. I'm not saying that the Dan Mann and the Hayden shapes weren't great surfboards or that they didn't deserve to possibly win. I'm just telling you, in my opinion, what I saw on film was that the Channel Islands and the JS on that last session there on the final episode just looked better to me. And a lot of it is the waves were really good. Both of those sessions on that CI were like early in the morning, first session, glassy, beautiful, not a drop of water out of place. Where some of the other boards got put out in some crappy waves, like the Sharp Eye was kind of put in some crappy waves relative to what the Channel Islands got.
Well, the other common denominator with the 2 finalists was thumbtail, or like kind of a rounded pin tail, as opposed to a squash tail. So I think that might have played a role.
Could be. And like I said, I respect his judgment. All the boards look great. What's really interesting is that it got me so frothed out on getting a tri-fin after watching this. And it didn't have anything to do with the CI or the Hayden or the Dan Mann. I just had to do with the level of surfing that these guys are doing on 3-fin surfboards. I was just inspired. I was just inspired by both Taj and Ethan surfing. And maybe even more so Taj, because he's kind of closer to my age than Ethan is. And, me personally, I'm always chasing these quads or these twinsers or these twin fins to get extra spark and speed. And of course, where I surf, I need that. But in general, when you're going to a place with good waves, maybe a 3-fin's not. I love 3-fins, man. Every time you ride a 3-fin in good waves, you're like, I knew I love these boards. There's a reason everybody in the world rides these boards in good waves.
100%.
For the most part.
100%. Yeah, Taj is absolutely ripping. And maybe we've overstated it or stated it enough, but yeah, Ethan's surfing in this series is the best surfing we've ever seen in any stab in the dark. And I know you said at the beginning, like, you can't get enough of his surfing. By the end of it, I had enough of it, to be honest, because I couldn't even tell the difference between any of the boards, any of the days, it was just like lights out. It was like going to a buffet and gorging yourself to where at the end you're like, I don't even know what's what. Like it all kind of looks this, but that's an attribute to certainly the shapers, but to Ethan's unbelievable consistency. And I think Taj said also, he hasn't effed up a wave. Like every wave he's on, he surfs it to a 10. He doesn't make a mistake. So that alone is worth putting on a shelf and just acknowledging and admiring, because I've never seen that level of consistent high performance over the course of 5 days.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you really summarized it well. Just gorging to a place like a buffet where you're just so full and
Yeah.
you can't eat anything and you might get sick.
Well, and that's my point to you about like, should we take a couple days off or a breather and come back? I'm like, no, man, we had a feast. He, I think, figured out exactly what he needed to figure out. An extra day's surf isn't going to change his conviction at this point. That's how I felt.
I just felt that maybe it was rushed. Maybe it was a bit rushed. Like,
I think, I don't know.
you and I aren't going to know that they took an extra 3 days to chill out because they decided to get fresh and do a sauna day or whatever. You know, like we're still going to see the edited version. It's not going to be any skin off of our backs. But what we're going to get is them going, we purposely took 3 days off or 2 days off so that he could get fresh, he could get relaxed, he could kind of wash his mind of the other boards. He's now got 2 boards in front of him. He's ready to go. He's going to give them a fair shake in really glassy conditions for hour and a half each board. We're going to really get, to the brass tacks here.
I think we got the brass tacks.
I don't think they were shined up enough. I don't think they put the brass polish together. I don't think they buffed it.
Nit picking. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And I think I'm asking you this, but I think the community I would like to ask the community this. Have you overlooked and underappreciated Hayden shapes?
To be honest, I think to be honest, I might have a little bias against Hayden.
Correct. I think the community does.
Bias against Hayden, I think, and I don't know why, other than maybe insecurity on my own part, like he got too much too soon or something. Like he didn't deserve what he got. Like who is this kid? Like maybe there was some salty old crusty in me that was sort of again manifesting due to an insecurity on my part, which was like, does he deserve that? And that's just me being, like I said, sort of immature. And by the way, at some point I was like, okay, I'm all in. And I went and bought full pop, full price, retail price, Hayden shapes. And what's the one that was really famous?
Hypto Crypto.
Yeah, I bought a Hypto Crypto. By the way, super sexy design. Like the outline's killer, right? In fact, the Rusty Griffins that we're riding are very similar. There's a lot of similar shapes to that right now, sort of wide point forward a little bit, more roundish outline. And so it was EPS. So I tried the board. I thought it was just a little too light, and it was more that it was EPS than anything else. It was just felt a little like chattery and a little like it didn't have any inertia down the wave face. It just kind of was like when I stood up, it just stayed there. It didn't want to get going. But regardless of that, point is Hayden deserves all the credit in the world. And I think that I'm not alone. Like I think there's others that had that bias.
That's exactly what I said, is the community or the core surf community, I think, has a certain stereotype. And I think that you are representative of it. So when you say he too much too soon or he didn't deserve what he got, what did he get? What were you feeling that towards?
Again, I'm not saying that the way I feel is correct or right. I know. But I'm saying that's on me. That's not on Hayden.
I know, but I'm just asking to illuminate to the community who doesn't maybe know the context and the history. What was it that he got? He
became like the most famous shaper in the world because that Hypto Crypto design was the #1 selling surfboard ever in the history of surfboards. Like it sold through the roof. There was images of Craig Anderson riding that board at huge Kandui or Cloudbreak. I think it was Kandui. And it's just, everyone's like, oh, if Craig Anderson's riding that board, I want to be riding that board. And frankly, Hayden's a great shaper. Like he's put in his time. He's done his due diligence. He's grinded, and he's also had to grind in the face of, a lot of pushback that we're sort of talking about now.
Yeah, I think the pushback that he's gotten and the criticism comes from his manufacturing practices and his super slick marketing, because he has earned his position to sell those surfboards. Like to sell as many boards as he did of the Hayden, because he obviously is a talented designer, and I don't know how much he's hand shaping, but let's just say he's a talented shaper, certainly a talented designer. And those boards have proven themselves. The way that Craig Anderson surfed validated the designs. I think the other thing that he tapped into with that specific design of the Hypto Crypto is a user friendliness. So for everybody who bought one, they went out there and they had fun on it. There were a lot of intermediate surfers. They weren't surfing like Craig Anderson, but there's a lot of intermediate surfers who look up to Craig Anderson. They get on it and they can surf it. They do have fun on it because of the foam distribution, the volume distribution. So, which isn't necessarily the same as if you go out and you buy what Felipe Toledo won his last heat on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to struggle on that board. I'm not going to struggle as hard on the Hypto. So I think that was the exact moment of like high performance, high profile pro surfer writing a design that the everyman can go out and have fun on and perform. Now, the slick, savvy marketing is the other detail, which I think so many great surfboard shapers don't have that. And then there's a few that do, but it requires money to do it. And do they have the money to even pull it off? So there's this huge chasm. And I think Hayden really embraced modern technology, savvy marketing, and then that exact board design that would translate to the masses. And so he leapfrogged to the top of the sales chain. And that's where all the animosity was built up in between, not only from shapers and brands, but then from surfers, core community members who are loyal to those shapers and brands who felt that animosity. But to Hayden's credit, he kind of just put his head down and just said, I'm going to block you guys out. He wrote a book, like an actual like biographical book about his journey, sold a bunch of those and just kept going.
I had no idea he wrote a book. That's great. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm the first one to raise my hand and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to amend my behavior about the way I feel about you, Mr. Hayden, and I apologize for my bias. And I have nothing but goodness for Hayden. I want him to achieve all that he's achieved and more. And I'm stoked for him. And I'm stoked he won. And his boards look good. The one Taj was riding looked good.
Yeah. Well, his book, by the way, is called New Wave Vision, and it was published by Simon & Schuster. I don't see the year, but it's.
And by the way, to the criticism that, he might not be a hand shaper, he's a designer or whatever, or he's a really slick marketer or whatever. Dude, as you know, David, he's not the only one that, is a designer, a computer shaper, and not necessarily a guy that lifts up the planer and goes, let's go. And by the way, you don't have to be that guy anymore. Those days are over. Like, you can just be a slick marketer and hire the right guys and put the right colors on your board. And the masses, dude, all we're doing is bottom turns.
Yeah.
None of us are doing aerials,
Well, I think, so it's worth noting that he started Hayden Shapes when he was 15 years old.
Good for him.
Yeah, and I think that so much of the innovation that we're talking about right now is in relation to his business manufacturing processes and his marketing. But the reality is he's always been hyper-focused on design theory and innovating in that space too. The geometry of surfboards and the principles of geometry, how those apply to surfboards and the actual materials themselves, from the foam cores to the fibers in the lamination process, the laminating itself. He's always been cutting edge, experimental, and innovative with all of that stuff. And so I think that appeals to the market as well.
My challenge to Hayden is enter a board in the best in show. Like, let's see your Super El Nino big wave gun, Hayden. Let's go, buddy. It's free to enter. And we'd be super excited to include your board in in the process.
Well, as it relates to the marketing, I was like, I haven't been to the guy's website in probably 5 years. Who knows when?
I'm afraid to go there. I'll probably order a board.
Well, so I went there, and of course, that board that won Stab in the Dark is on the homepage, Dark Noise. And I click on it, and it's like, of course, incredible website, incredible visuals, incredible user experience. And then you scroll down, and there's an image of Ethan Ewing riding it. So here we have a lifelong DHD rider, and yet you get to use Ethan's imagery on your website, of course, rightfully, because he won the event on it. But again, just fast to market. Like, I don't remember in Stab in the Dark where somebody wins, and immediately you go to their website, and it's all available right there, laid out for you, you know? By the way, other people have been riding this board. Taj, Craig Anderson, Tanner Godowskis, Dion Agius, Balaram Stack, Mickey Clark, and they've got all their dimensions there. They have a volume calculator you can use to figure out exactly what works for you based on your height and weight. So again, just a savvy user experience, which I would expect nothing less from.
Wow. This board's way too small for me. I'm looking at it right now.
Remember what I said episode 1 of Stab in the Dark?
Yeah.
I said, if you watch this and you think that you're ready to ride some of these boards, put on a pair of size 32 trunks and stand in front of the mirror with nothing else on and see if you look like Ethan Ewing does. And if you don't, volume up.
Exactly right.
So
it's funny. I was talking to a shaper, I forget who, yesterday. It might have been Ryan Sakel. I was talking to somebody and I was like, yeah, I go on these websites and I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I want like the new Dark Noise from Hayden Shapes. And I look, and I always go immediately to the thickness. Like I know I like 2 5/8, you know? And so if I go to the 2 5/8 one, well, it's only 33 liters. I'm at least 35. I might need 36 liters. And it's not even 20 inches wide. I can't ride a board that's not 20 inches wide. I'm 61 years old. So then I go to the board that makes sense to me liters wise, the 6'2", and it's 2 3/4 inches thick. It's too thick. These little chicken legs can't sink that rail.
yeah.
And I run across this problem a lot on all of these sites that have like predetermined specs.
Yeah. I hear you. I understand. Well,
No,
I'm
boring you. I get it. I don't blame you.
For the record,
Yeah.
I know I sound like a Hayden apologist. I've never met him, never even spoken to him, never ridden one of the boards. I'm just giving you a commentary from my perspective on how I've seen the market react to his position in the market over the years.
Yeah.
But I will also say I've not seen him play in the pointy thruster end of the market before. I'm sure that he's made them. I just haven't really seen him being ridden. And this is a huge boon for him to break into that conversation that's usually dominated by 5 brands.
Yeah, it's almost got like a little beak nose from one of these photos. Some of these photos look like there's just a very slight beak and there's some volume up in the front of it, but all very intriguing.
2 final thoughts before we finish this conversation on this series. Would you like to discuss or share any thoughts on DHD's dismissal? DHD was included in the final with Ethan not being told which board it was. However, having identified it just visually, he knew kind of which one was the DHD. So he surfed it in the final, and then he said that it wasn't worthy of winning. So it technically got lost. But in the past, we've heard of people just dismissing it. Like Mick Fanning doesn't include DHD because he knows it's a DHD and he's ridden them forever. So Ethan did not dismiss it, but it did lose. And then the other thing is Dan Mann coming in second place after the controversial Kelly win. What are your thoughts on those 2, Colin?
It's funny. They did sort of kind of bury the lead with the DHD because going into the series, I was like, okay, what point am I going to see them go, well, we know this is the DHD, so I'm going to not even surf it because that's the fair thing to do. But they didn't kind of do that. And then, again, he didn't give a ton of insight into, he was just sort of like really quick with his decisions. Like, no, that one's out. I'm going to go with the round tails or whatever. And that was a little, I guess, if you're going to be hypercritical, it would have been fun to get some insight into why his own shaper's board didn't make the final.
It made the final. Not the
I mean,
final two.
it wasn't the final two though.
Yeah, I was surprised that he didn't have more, I don't know, didn't have more success on the DHD. So then I just realized maybe just the idea of writing something new provided a little spark for him that just felt novel.
Yeah, and it could have been that they got him on camera saying, "Look, it's probably I'm just going to ride these ones because that's what this is. That's what this whole thing's about, really. You know, like
In the past, they've addressed it.
yeah."
So I thought
know.
that was
Isn't
weird.
Yeah, it was.
So does this alter Ethan Ewing's trajectory with DHD?
I don't have a clue about that. I don't think so. I think they have a long-running, long-term relationship, and I don't think that this gets in the way of that at all. If anything, it probably helps. You know, like like they're just going to build upon it. You know.
Okay. And then Dan Mann finishing second.
Dan Mann is. Here's the thing, like to maybe the masses, the name Dan Mann just kind of showed up on the scene maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I don't know. Dan Mann's been shaping boards for 30 years. He's an excellent shaper, always has been. Excellent surfer. You know, he's just a really great shaper. Like hundreds, maybe thousands of other shapers out there that just haven't been in the limelight. You know, he's a great shaper. Like for instance, if Johnny Cabianca wasn't making Taj's boards, we all know Johnny's an excellent shaper, a world-class shaper. I would have never known who Johnny Cabianca was unless I lived in Europe or in Brazil. Or Rudolfo Klima, you know, like insane shaper from Peru. I wouldn't have known who he was, you know, like except for Eric Arakawa introduced me to him. Like there's just thousands of Dan Manns out there that are world-class shapers that just, you know, haven't had the, you know,
Yeah.
the magic mojo of being in the right place at the right time, and
Or having
Kelly Slater's asking you to make him a board.
Yeah. Just quick clarification. You said Johnny Cabianca making Taj's boards.
Oh, I meant Gabe.
Gabriel Medina, obviously.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So what I loved to see is in the Stab comments section, so many people who I presume don't even know Dan Mann coming to his defense and being like, we all owe Dan an apology. I want to see, anytime I see anything written, I want to see a sorry Dan Mann first. And it was like comment after comment doing that. So I think that everybody recognizes he got caught up in the Kelly controversy unfairly. And that, you know, everything that you said obviously is true. And that obviously he's won the Boardroom show, Icons of Foam, so he can hand shape and of course design a high performance shortboard that Ethan Ewing thinks is world class.
I guess there was a little bit of controversy around Taj. I saw in some of the comments. I don't know if you even want to address it. I don't think it's worth
So the
overly addressing, but
well, it's worth noting, and I have my own thoughts on it too. Taj Burrows apparently has a, you know, working financial relationship with Hayden Shapes, which I was unaware of. And early in this series, Taj was actually riding a non-Hayden Shapes board. He was riding a little bit bigger board. He gave the name of the local shaper that he got it from, and I forget whose name it was. So he's not exclusively riding Hayden, but apparently he does have some sort of financial tie to Hayden. And so the controversy or the question is he quietly, even if unintentionally, influencing Ethan? You know, does Ethan come in from a surf on the Hayden and Taj say to him, fuck, you looked amazing on that board? You know, like there can be subliminal, again, if unintentional influence happening through that relationship.
yeah, the thing is with that specific situation is that Ethan looked amazing on every board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Taj mentioned that as well. Taj is like, he surfed great on every single board. Like Ethan was like too good of a subject for this particular series.
I knew of this potential controversy prior to watching episode 5. And so I was going into it with a little bit of skepticism. When I watched the episode, the skepticism was erased. And I not because I thought that Hayden looked better. It was erased because I felt like Ethan was being sincere, and I didn't hear Taj implementing any of that influence. And of course, it could have happened off camera or whatever, but I did feel like he was equally enthusiastic about the CI and the other boards.
Yeah, it's interesting the role that Taj played, which was a good one. I thought it really helped the series move along. It basically was giving us a guy on the beach point of view. And I think they can do the guy on the beach point of view, frankly, from Sam. If Sam's there, they could just put the camera on Sam and have Sam go, here's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think Sam likes to stay a step removed. And I think
that's
Taj
fine, but somebody could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Taj... I wish I didn't know about the financial connection to Hayden. Because otherwise I thought Taj was all added value.
Yeah, but I don't sense that there's any conspiracy. Yeah, impropriety. Thank you.
I don't sense that there's any intentional impropriety. I just worry that it's not truly a double-blind test anymore, because Taj does have an alliance, and I don't trust that he is objective enough to divorce himself from his own emotional investment and financial investment.
I mean, look, if I was riding for somebody and somebody else was riding those boards and it was what I saw was incredible surfing on that board, I'd be like, dude, you were ripping on that board. This guy makes me great boards too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be because there was any sort of malice involved. It would just be, that's my subconscious or unconscious or maybe conscious bias towards it.
And that specifically creates a non-scientific experiment. That eliminates the objectivity and the double-blind nature of it.
Yeah.
But whatever, is what it is. Phenomenal event, or phenomenal series, phenomenal surfing. Congrats to all. Great job, Stab. As always, the production value continues to...
We're looking forward to the next one, David. The Stab in the Dark Icons of Foam edition, where they get all the legendary shapers that are still making great shortboards. You know, Eric Arakawa, Rusty, Simon Anderson. Get these guys involved.
Keckley.
Yes, Keckley, good idea.
Xanadu,
great idea. I guarantee you that when there's 12 surfboards lined up and you have to pick which one's the Xanadu, you'll be able to do it. Like, he's got a unique sort of plan shape outline for sure.
Moving on.
Yes.
I want to alert everybody. The Paul Strauch paddle out has been announced. Okay. For anybody wanting to do a paddle out in Paul's honor in Southern California, the Memorial Paddle Out and Celebration will be held on Wednesday, July 22nd from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at Doheny State Beach. And then another will be scheduled on Oahu, and the date of that is yet to be announced. But July 22nd, 3 to 6 at Doheny.
Unreal. What a sweet human Paul Strauch was.
Absolutely. Rest in peace. And then, of course, Surfrider Foundation is just doing incredible work week after week, year after year for over 40 years now. And they're only limited by the amount of resource and manpower. And so please consider getting involved. The ocean needs more friends. We cannot survive without the health of the ocean, and that is their sole mission, is cleaning and restoring ocean health. So surfrider.org is where you go.
All right, Surfrider Foundation, let's do this. Hey, you know what? We've said a lot. You've said words. I've responded back. Vice versa. There was discourse. Until next time, David, adios and aloha.